You're listening to the Raw Honeys podcast, the place for women who crave connection. Join Chelsea Fine, Heather Hildenbrand, and me, Amanda Axel. We're real friends who aren't afraid to talk about the raw truth of real life. If you're looking for a group of girlfriends who will support and encourage you when the going gets tough, this is the place to be. Pull up a chair, grab a cup of coffee or a glass of wine, and enjoy the show. Hey, honeys. This is Amanda. I'm here with Chelsea and Heather. How are you guys doing?
So good.
Doing good. How are you?
Oh my God, I am so good. Yeah, you know how life is. Like sometimes you're just like in like the mud, and it's just challenge, and then like the victories start to happen. I'm in the victory phase right now, and it's really nice.
Oh,
it's a nice break from all that mud and yuck.
Yes. Oh, I'm so happy for you and so jealous. That's awesome.
What about you guys? What's new with you guys? Chelsea?
New with me. Well, my kids are out of school for the summer, which I love. I really like it when my kids are home. I know that some parents like it. Summertime kind of drives them crazy, but I really like having people in my house. And so during the summer, there's always 2 kids in my house. It's great. So far, like our summer's off to a good start. We made our summer to-do list. We do that like every year right after school ends. Me and my kids, we sit down, we make a list of all the things we want to do over the summer before school starts again. And we try to do as many of them as possible. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to summer, except this year, my kids only have like 6 weeks of summer or maybe 7. They're in year-round school. And so I guess that's normal, but it just, compared to like when I was growing up, probably you guys too, was summer like 3 months long?
Yeah, it still is here.
It still is.
Oh, okay. So I'm not
outside of year-round school.
Right. And so my kids have been in year-round school for like 5 years, but their summers used to be longer. However, this summer in particular is only like 6 or 7 weeks long. And I'm kind of sad about that. Although I understand like academically that's probably nice. They don't get too out of like the schooling kind of phase in their head or whatever. But it just seems like, I don't know. I feel like there's like a ticking clock now. Like, oh, we got to hurry up and do all of our summer stuff because we only have a few weeks. So I don't know. Just doing summer.
I miss summer break. Right. Like, I think kids, they don't know how good they really have it when they have 6 weeks off or 7 or 3 months or whatever. Like, I didn't know how good I had it. I really didn't. And plus I didn't have a driver's license back then. So, or money or my own money.
Yeah, that matters. Those things.
Yeah. But can you imagine like a driver's license, money, and 3 months off? Like,
it's like my life.
I mean, it sounds good, but I think you're right that you still don't know what you have, because I was just talking to Brooke about this, how Austin was like talking about how he wants to get a job. He's 13. He can't get a job yet, but he was like expressing interest in wanting to have a job because he wants his own money. And Brooke, the wizened 16-year-old that she is, she was like, tell him to just wait. Like, once you start working, that's it.
I know you never stop.
And so she's like, just tell him, just be patient and just wait. And, it's not that serious.
Yeah. Be a kid.
But she does love having her own money. She's not going to give up her job. But at the same time, she recognizes she's already like, oh, the good old days,
I know.
Oh my God.
So it's true though. Like, you just don't know. But yeah, I mean, 6 or 7 weeks of summer, I do think I would feel a little bit kind of stressed about, okay, we have to do all these fun things, and already summertime is a hard time for me to focus or figure out work versus spending time. And I think if it was shorter, I'd feel even more like that. Although we are taking a family trip for 2 weeks to Colorado, and I'm just very excited about that. I'm so excited that we will get sick of each other. We're going to spend so much time together, which will absolve me of any guilt later of, I should be spending time instead of working. Nope, we're all sick of each other. It doesn't matter.
Time to work.
Plan. Binge on family. I like it.
Yeah. Binge family. All right, guys. So speaking of family, we're going to talk a little bit about relationships. maybe more specifically friendships today. And so we were talking earlier just about some experiences that we've had, and we kind of, came to this thought about how challenging relationships can be. They're very, very hard, and friendships too can also be very challenging. And sometimes it's really hard to know, like when you should stick it out and when you should let the relationship go. And so we wanted to cover that today because I think, we'll share this, but, with a lot of our experiences, when you have the courage to stick it out, a lot of times the payoff is really, really big. And so we wanted to talk about that and how we're able to do that, because that is not an easy thing. Am I right, you guys?
No, not easy.
Yeah. So anyway, Chelsea, I'm going to start with you. Why don't you talk about like an example of not giving up on your friends?
Oh,
like a challenge, and then like how you stuck it out.
So, I kind of have like a personal conviction about not abandoning people. Not that that's what we're talking about at all, but because of that part of my personality, I will try harder and for longer to stick with people, even beyond what's healthy. So for me, I'm still definitely a work in progress. I'm still definitely trying to figure out what my own parameters are. But I would have to say, I have lots of examples, as we all do, right? That just going through life, there's always people that we need to make decisions about and stuff. But in my more recent years, there have been like one or two friends of mine who, whose lives changed or perspective changed, or maybe their temperaments changed a little bit and made it difficult to be in like a really healthy, happy friendship with them, just temporarily, but I did not know it was temporary at the time. And I think that that's actually a big crux of what we're talking about here is when you're in a friendship or a relationship of any kind and things aren't going smoothly, there's no way for us to know if this is a temporary situation or if this is just how things are going to be going forward. And I think that that's where that decision of like, am I going to stick this out? That's where that decision has to be made. And that's where things get kind of tricky too. And so for me, I had a really good friend a few years ago who was friends with like a group of mine. And she kind of veered off the track of the friendship group, which is totally fine. We're all individuals and stuff. But it didn't really jive well with the rest of the friend group. And so she sort of removed herself from the friend group. And I had a decision to make, like, am I going to include myself in the friend group and separate from her? Or do I want to stay, in my own little personal friendship with just her outside of the friend group? And I chose just her. And that's kind of what, at least in the last 5 or 6 years of my life, that's kind of the choice I almost always make at first. But I did choose to stick with her, and not necessarily because I was sure that it was a temporary situation, because I don't think it was, but because I love her and I see the beautiful parts of her, and I respect the beautiful parts of her, and I learn from her. Like, she does actively teach me even when she's not trying. And so there was a part of me that knew that there's a part of her that's good for me, if that makes sense. And I know that sort of sounds a little selfish, but I'm grateful I did, because sticking with her at first was complicated and a little uncomfortable because of all the other friendship issues with our group. But over time, it has become very low maintenance and very comfortable and very easy. And she and I have actually grown a little bit apart and a little bit different from one another, but in like that really safe way, where like, if we don't talk to each other for a year or two, for whatever reason, I know it's fine and we still love each other and we can talk again and it'll be like nothing changed. So I do consider that a success, and I'm so grateful that I stuck with her, especially because I think for the season of life she was in at that time, I like to think that it was helpful for her to have someone who was just there to say, I love you, even when she was hard to love. Because I know I'm hard to love sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. I mean, you hit the nail on the head. Is sometimes all of us, and, everybody can be very difficult to love, right? Like, when we start these friendships, we have this impression of the person, and we have this, this, you know, this relationship that develops that has like a pattern and everything makes sense. And then all of a sudden when things change, it's like, whoa, who am I friends with right now? Like that happens a lot actually. So for you, Chelsea, your natural inclination when things go that way is to stick it out a little bit and see what's really beyond that.
Oh, yes.
And then, so what about you, Heather? Like in those kind of situations, what's your typical reaction?
Well, my typical reaction has changed a couple of times over my lifetime. So I went through a period where I would stick it out because I just didn't know anything else. So even when I saw that it wasn't going to change or it wasn't good for me, I stuck it out because that's just what was expected, or I didn't know any better. I didn't have good models for what to do, because in certain friendships and relationships, when you're sticking it out, it doesn't just mean that you take whatever is being dished out, that you become like a punching bag or a last resort or, you know, last choice or a scapegoat for someone else's feelings they haven't worked through or whatever. And I think that in our society, a lot of times people's automatic reaction is you either stick it out and become all of those things. That's what sticking it out with somebody looks like, or you cut and run, you're done, immediately burned, you know, the bridge is gone. In our society, I think it's just one of those two. And especially in the last, I don't know if it's recent, but it's recent messaging I've received is that in our very current culture, the number one answer that people give is to cut someone out. Just be done. I see memes all the time on Instagram, like if they're not bringing you joy, cut them, boom, gone. Right. That's just what I feel like the messaging is on friendships and relationships right now. So I fell into the first camp first, like earlier in my life, all the way up through my 20s, late 20s ish. And by 30 or maybe a little before, I had just like a culmination of, you know, I don't know. I don't know if it was like the straw that broke the camel's back. One last relationship that was what I was talking about, where I was getting, you know, dumped on, or it was negative, or it was never going to change. And it made me, you know, less of who I was because of it or whatever. And so that's not a good way to stick it out. That's not what we want to promote today. Right. So I did that.
Right.
And then something snapped and I became the opposite of that, where I just like cleaned out, right? Like, all right, you gotta go, you gotta go, you gotta go. And so it was just completely in the blink of an eye or snap, you know, I snapped. It was just like, we're Marie Kondoing all of you. Goodbye. You know? And so, awesome. And I did that. And then I wrestled with all of that for a really long time. And I think it wasn't until I became friends with you guys. I mean, I had a couple of friendships before I became friends with you guys that also were really, really great lessons. And I'm kind of friends with them still, but not like we were, but they were great lessons about learning that there's a middle ground, you know, and that it's like a balance between the two, I think. Yeah. It's like pieces of both. It's like now I am all about sticking it out if we can still love each other while being in each other's lives. And love meaning like the verb of love, like what you and I and Chelsea have, where when we have a conflict or something is going on with one of us, we can totally not just call each other out, because that sounds so, hey, what's wrong with you? But more like we can address it or ask it or comfort or support or whatever we need. We're coming from a positive, loving place with it then versus, you know, like calling it out. That just sounds so confrontational. And so I don't think it's always
our intentions.
Yeah, it's a much more well-intentioned thing. So, but I've had to learn all of that. I was, you know, for a while I had this go-to and then I had that go-to because I didn't know, because nobody teaches you how to make friends, which is why we started this podcast. And then more importantly, nobody teaches you how to keep them. right? And isn't that what we're talking about? Because some of my friendships, in order to keep them, meaning in order to keep caring about them, I did have to kind of either remove them from my life or put them in a different, okay, we haven't talked about this in a while, but the three of us used to talk about this. I think it might've been me and Amanda a little bit more, but we used to talk about our friendship being, or our friends being more like, it's like a stadium, right? Or like a theater seat, and how you have to be really careful about who you let sit in the front row. And that sometimes, and again, it could be temporary. Like Chelsea said, they can move seats, but sometimes you got to move them. You got to be like, nope, you sit in the back for a while. Some people, yeah, you have to kick them out of the theater. It doesn't mean you'll never let them back in, you know, but you have to adjust the row that they get to sit in the show of your life or whatever. And all for your health, but also for like, how can you best still care about them? So I think that's what I try to do now.
That's a great analogy. I don't think I'd ever heard that you and Amanda taled about. Yeah.
Oh, it was definitely me and Heather. I remember it was so good when we created this analogy.
Yeah. Because I was struggling with a certain friend, and I was struggling because I struggle with kicking people out of my life now, because I don't like being a person who has to do that, because I did that, and I just don't like how it feels. I just don't like how it makes me feel. But I also have really strict boundaries, you guys know. And when somebody repeatedly crosses my boundaries, and I've repeatedly in love gone to them and said, you're hurting me, or this, and there's no change, sometime, you know, that was when that came up. Amanda was like, you don't have to kick her out of the theater, put her in the back row, you know, and like, there's your compromise. And it was so beautiful.
Yeah. Well, because that's the thing, is like, it doesn't have to be an all or nothing thing. You know, like so many of us, and I can be guilty of this. I'm sure all of us can be guilty of this. I don't know if Chelsea's so guilty of this with her personality, but where we just feel that we need to make certain decisions and create bright lines in our lives in order to like know where we're going, like to not have something in limbo, like not have a friendship in limbo and be like, well, I love her, but not a lot right now, or whatever.
Everything is so final. Like we have to decide today, forever.
Right.
You know?
Right. Like I have to decide everything right now. And so that really was the purpose of that analogy, was to say like, it doesn't have to be all or nothing. It doesn't have to be in the theater or down the street. You know, it can be in another location in the theater. It doesn't have to be a front row. Yeah. You know, it's funny because you were talking about, you know, nobody teaches us how to get through these challenging parts of our friendship, especially if we don't have it modeled for us with our, you know, maybe our siblings or our parents or, you know, extended family. But I know for me, you guys know what I'm about to bring up, right?
There's a show. I can't remember. What is it, Amanda?
What's it called again?
All right, listen, honeys, if you guys want to start a drinking game.
We've said that already.
Have I already said this?
I
know.
Well,
take a drink, because I'm about to say Sex and the City.
We need a sound effect.
It's the theme of Amanda's life.
I know, we really do. It's going to be like, dun, 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 dun,
right.
whatever. Anyway, so, but yeah, like, because I can clearly remember like certain moments in that show, watching it as a young person and really understanding like, wow, when you have a really bad fight with your friend, or when like you guys are just not on the same page and you kind of hate each other and you really need space, it doesn't mean that that's it. You know, it's like, it's so terrible to think that like you have this beautiful relationship, you have all these wonderful memories, these laughs, these wine nights, whatever. And then you have a bad week or a bad month or a bad day or whatever it is, and it erases all of that. Like that happens so often. Like, I don't know what is wrong with our brains. I don't know if it's like the negativity bias or something, but we do this with everything, you know, where it's like we focus on the one negative thing and we let that cloud all the other stuff. And it happens not just within our relationships, but it happens with our jobs, you know, and like different parts of our life, like with us, you know, it's like, you can get mad at yourself for making one mistake, but like, look at all the other things you did right, you know? So I think, you know, for me watching that show growing up, like I remember like there was this episode where Charlotte and Samantha got into it. Basically, like Samantha was calling Charlotte a prude, and Charlotte was indicating that Samantha was a slut, and that was. I think the episode, was it called Are We Sluts? I don't know. I can't remember. But anyway, I can find it out and link it. But, you know, it was just really funny. And what ended up happening was Samantha was like, you know what? Screw all of you guys. And she went out and she got this other friend that made her feel like such a prude.
Right. Oh my.
And like by the end of the episode, everything was good again. You know what I mean? Like they just really needed that space and that perspective, you know? And I'm not saying it's always that cut and dry. It is not that cut and dry. But I think, you know, like having that example of what loyalty really looks like, because you become I think friends become your family. And that's how I've always looked at my friendships. Like when not all of them, but a lot of them, like I love, like, you're in with me. Like you're my sister, you're my brother, you're my whatever. Like we're family now. So, so I'm not going anywhere, and you can push and kick and try to shove me away. Cause that's, I think a lot because of that show, I'm like that actually. Now that's not to say like to Heather's point, let's go back to Heather's point where we're not talking about sticking it out and taking abuse, right? Like we're not talking about keeping yourself in a bad situation. And there's a really clear distinction, I think. And that's obviously something you really have to discern for yourself. But, you know, we're just talking in general when it gets a little rocky.
Yeah. Well, I think it's like, for me, it was a place where self-worth meets empathy. Because if I don't have good self-worth, I'm going to let myself be abused in the way people treat me. And I'm just going to keep coming back for it. I'm going to stick it out. Or if I cut them out so easily, it's because I haven't given them enough empathy or compassion for they messed up. They did something and they messed up, but it doesn't mean it's not fixable between us, or that, like you said, a different perspective where you realize it's still worth it. They are still worth it, you know? So it's like you have to come to that intersection of both of those things, because if you have too much empathy, you're just going to let people keep kind of sort of running over you, I guess. Or you're in danger of that. Because I hear from a lot of women, I mean, I guess I hear from a lot of women really on both sides of the spectrum, but there have been some conversations even more recently, I think, in our Facebook group where to me, it sounds like that's what's happening. It's like they are letting themselves be a little bit of a doormat because they want to be everything for everybody, because they think if they do that, then those people will reciprocate or whatever. And that's true. You should be that good. You should be a good friend. You know, you should, and they should reciprocate. A good friendship would let you be there for them and they'll be there for you. But when you don't have enough self-worth to see, oh, but actually they're mistreating me and I'm worth more than that, then, you know, so then you have to have the self-worth that comes in with that. And you have to have kind of a balance of the two to understand exactly what we're talking about here, when to put them in the front row and when to put them in the back row or kick them out, you know?
Yeah. No, I think that's a huge component, and not just in friendship, but in life in general. Like, I think we've said this before, but we teach people how to treat us.
Yeah.
You know, there's we let people get away with certain things with us, and they know exactly what it is. That's why a lot of times when we end up in situations where we give and we give and we give because we believe that they're going to reciprocate and they don't, it's because maybe we haven't like really drawn that line and saying like, okay, you can't just empty the well. You know what I mean? Like you're going to have to fill it up.
Yeah.
You know, and like really having that conversation or whatever it is.
It's so interesting to me, like kind of just the dynamics of relationships, of friendships, and then specifically like personality to personality, because what we're talking about is sort of a broad thing, but the way you handle things like empathy or balancing empathy and self-worth, or handle like that decision, like what seat in the theater am I going to put them in, right? Like the way that we do that, a lot of times we customize towards whatever the personality is of that friend or that person that we're dealing with, right? To communicate in a language that our relationship can uphold. And it's interesting because for most of my life, I would say I was a lot like Heather, exactly the same. Just I would stick with it because that was the I guess the quote unquote right thing to do. That was the Christian thing to do. That was, you know, the loving thing to do is to forgive and be there. And I'm not saying that it's not, okay. It is loving to do that and stuff, but it wasn't until, a handful of years ago in my life where there became a really stark distinction between sticking it out with someone for the sake of making them feel comfortable and me sticking it out with someone for the sake of growing something with that person. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And it took a lot of bravery though. Like the first few times I tried this, the very first time, the very first time I had a falling out with a friend that is like a soulmate friend of mine, and it wasn't even really a falling out. It was just seasons of life and stuff. And it was so painful to not be close to her for this temporary season that we were in. It was so painful, and it made me angry, and it made me feel insecure, and it made me sad. It made me feel a lot of things really passionately. But most of all, what I felt is that I missed her. And then I was angry that I missed her because I didn't think that was fair because I wasn't the one who had left or whatever. Right. But it's just human nature. But then, you know, after a handful of months, she sent me this long, very well articulated email, just basically saying, hey, here's where I've been. I'm sorry that this happened. Here's where my issues have been. And it was wonderful because it opened the door for like conversation and healing. And I was able to email her back and have all my thoughts and feelings kind of laid out before her. And I'll tell you what, guys, the moment I pressed send on that email to share my honesty with that person that I loved and missed, but maybe would never talk to again, I felt so powerful and safe. Like I was not afraid of losing her the moment I pressed send. I wasn't afraid of losing anything because in that moment, I realized that we had already gotten through this season in our friendship simply by us choosing to communicate with one another in an honest way, regardless of what decision that we make going forward, like how often are we going to hang out or whatever. Like we had already achieved what it was that I want out of my friendships, which is a place of honesty, bravery, safety, and I guess trust, right? And that relationship, while it was like on the rocks back then, you know, it illuminated this kind of concept for me. And then that just made me want to be more brave moving forward with my friendships, you know? So if there's going to be a person who may or may not be the best fit in my life at whatever season I'm in, you know, I try to ask myself first, like, okay, do I want to invest in this so we can grow something so that we can be honest? Do I want to get to a place where I can write all my thoughts and feelings and give them my heart and trust them no matter what their decision or response is? And some people are worth it to me. Some people are not quite that right caliber for that in my life, if that makes sense. And that's just a personal thing. But some people, even if I don't have any really great reasons for it, some people instinctually I know are totally worth it, you know? And I haven't been wrong yet, just in the last couple of years. But stay tuned because I'm wrong all the time. So we'll see.
That's such a great story though, Chelsea. And I'm really glad that you shared that because this is what I take from hearing that story is that what happened in that situation is you and your friend were able to come to an understanding of one another, which was probably at the root of the issue anyway, which is that there was a misunderstanding, right?
Yeah.
And even if it wasn't like a Three's Company misunderstanding, you know, it's like there was still something that wasn't quite connecting. Yeah. And I think that's really the big thing. And again, I'm sorry, not just in friendships or relationships, but in all life is, you know, we have a choice when things get hard. We can run away or we can face them. And when we run away, when things are rough, then the truth is that, you know, we're not going to really be able to hide. That situation's going to come up again. And I think that everybody listening, you know, all three of us know this, that when we have run from a situation, somehow it appears in another way, you know? Yeah. And I think that's because it's a reflection of something that's really going on with us. That's why certain people trigger us, certain situations trigger us. It's because there's something that we have to, you know, polish and develop in our own life. But if we face it, even if that means in the end, the friendship will end and people will move on, or the relationship will end, or you leave your job or whatever. But if we face it and get to a good place, then you have resolved it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then it won't follow you the same way,
Yeah.
or it won't follow you at all.
It's not an open wound.
Right. Exactly. And that's the thing is when these things happen, we get hurt, right? That's why we want to run, because we want to protect ourselves. We don't want to be in pain. We don't want someone to have the kind of power over us where they can hurt our feelings and make us cry or make us feel bad about ourselves, or whatever the case may be. Or, you know, bring out something in our life that we're not ready for, that like, I don't want to think about this or feel this, you know, like,
yeah,
let me just cut this off. It's like cutting off like a limb, you know, that's like infected, you know, it's like, let's just cut this shit off. But using the limb analogy,
it's a bad case of frostbite. It's got to go.
Let's heal the wound, right? Even if there's a scar, let's heal the wound first, you know?
Yeah. Well, and
but that takes a lot of courage to do that.
It does. Well, and what you look at, what you end up having, if you come across somebody who is willing to heal something with you, you know, in a friendship, like what's really great, or what I've learned, specifically with Heather, is it okay if I use me and you, Heather, as an example? Okay. Okay. So honeys, I know you guys know us, but I'm just going to reiterate here. So Heather and I have loud personalities.
I like that you say it like they don't already know, but yes, go on.
I know. So Heather and I, we have really similar, forthright with our fire, if that makes sense, right? And we're also both writers. We're well spoken. We're very articulate. But we are also like, we're so pro woman, specifically for ourselves, that our arenas, our personal arenas, they're sacred to us. Okay. And so for the most part, Heather and I, we orbit within each other's like space, and it's beautiful and wonderful because we're kind of like jet engines. That's kind of how I see us. Like we're like jet engines. But Heather and I, we had to have like a come to Jesus kind of moment, like 3 years ago. Was it 4 years ago? It's a long time ago.
I don't know. Yeah. It's been a few years. Yeah.
It was years ago. And I need to credit Heather, because Heather carried the bravery for us in this specific instance. But it wasn't like something nasty or horrible, but it was definitely something where our friendship in this particular moment, it could have severed. There could have been a fissure running all the way through it, and it could have just drifted apart or broken half had we just ignored it. But Heather chose not to. Heather didn't even wait, actually. And I love this because Heather, like, her heart felt something wrong, and then her soul felt pain. And then she said, I need to talk to you. And it was brilliant, you guys. So first of all, I get really excited when people want to talk to me in a confrontational way. It's just,
which might be why we survived so well, because you were like smiling the whole time.
It's exciting. But the reason is because of the other friend that I had that we did the emails with, and I came out of that, and I feel like she and I are both stronger people because of it. So this was like any kind of opportunity to be confrontational with someone I love, I consider it an honor. And Heather did not even mess around. She was like, I need to talk to you. And she kept her composure. And we went outside, and my heart was beating really fast, but I was so stoked. I mean, I was not stoked about the possibility that I had hurt my friend, of course, that there were things that needed to be addressed. And I did need to say, I'm sorry, and ask for forgiveness on some things that I had not been self-aware about. Right. And I appreciate that. But like, before we got to all that, I knew, Heather, when you and I were walking onto that back porch to sit at the table and to have that conversation, I knew that we were going to be friends, close friends, deep friends forever. Because just the act of saying, I need to talk to you, and the two of us going outside away from people, that's us taking our friendship seriously. Like, I knew we were already triumphant, but I couldn't say that in the moment because you were very angry.
A lot. So, it was great.
I did.
It was good. It was reassuring to me, because for me at that point, mostly conflict meant the end of something. So I was more nervous than you probably knew because of that. So you guys are.
Oh shoot! And I'm over here smiling.
You were smiling, and I was like, I don't know what this means.
You're like, this is not normal.
I haven't had a lot of conversations like this with friends, but I don't think this is how it's done. But it is. It's how it's done now.
Yeah. It's how it should be done. Yeah.
Because
it was wonderful though.
Being upset did not make you defensive. Chelsea, you have such a gift for that. Like we were talking about that in the anger episode earlier about how if somebody gets mad at you and you can just sit and receive it and let them tell you how they're feeling instead of getting defensive and feeling like you need to come back with either defending yourself or pointing out their stuff right back to them. You don't do that. You receive it. And it's just met with love. And so it was really just beautiful. I appreciate that about you.
It was so beautiful. And it's so funny that you're saying that about receiving it, because I've never like thought about it like that, you know, like receiving it. Yeah. But that kind of is, and that's what the three of us do for each other, or we try to do, is like when there's an issue that comes up, we try to, I guess, listen first, receive it first, and maybe let whatever's bleeding bleed a little bit, right? Because kind of what we're trying to do when we come to a friend, when we're brave enough to be like, hey, I need to talk to you because I'm hurting right now. I mean, there's a part of us in our human nature that wants the other person to hurt with us, right? And so sometimes you got to let the other person bleed a little bit so that you feel that pain, because it's really easy for us to like immediately be like, oh, I'm so sorry. Anything I did, I'm so sorry. Please forgive me. And let's go get cupcakes. Like that seems like a really easy, like Band-Aid kind of fix to things, but that's not allowing for that other person to feel received, like what you're saying. So that's a good point. The receiving is equally important, if not more so.
Yeah, because that is part of, so on the other end, like on the person, like on if you feel you were hurt and you're bringing that to somebody, if you have to use your intuition. And if you feel like what you're saying and what they're receiving is going to repair things or prevent that hurt from continually happening again, that's how you know that it's worth sticking with that person, you know, when they're not comfortable with your pain, but they're willing to sit with you in it, even though they caused it. That's the hardest thing to do in the world for somebody, is to sit in pain with somebody who you know you caused it, especially if you care about them.
Yes.
And I think that's a good distinction too, because if you bring your pain to somebody and they are not comfortable sitting in it with you, knowing they caused it, like if they cannot even stand the thought that they caused it, that's why they're abusing you, or, you know, with their words or even their actions, that's the red flag of, okay, sticking it out is not the right thing in this case, you know, not in the way that you've been showing up until now. It's got to look different. And I know I am the first to tell you that every relationship is different. And, you know, some of these might even be with your family or people that you can't really just say, okay, bye, you know. It's a little more complicated than that. And we know, because we all have relationships like that are difficult, that are complicated, that are hard to navigate, and to continually find the balance. I have people in my life that have just been in the back row for a really long time. I have people that think they're in the stadium or the theater, but they're actually not. It's like an optical illusion. So it's really complicated depending on who it is. And I just want to say I get that, because I just feel like there's going to be people listening to this going, yeah, but it's my sister, or it's my brother, or it's my mom, or it's my dad, or whatever. That's that hard relationship for you that you just keep showing up for and feeling like every time you do, you get hurt, or you get dumped on, or you are the scapegoat, or it's never going to change no matter what boundaries you set or whatever. And so I just want to say, I get it because I have those same complicated relationships. And what we've been talking about here is pretty cut and dried. Like, you will know if, depending on how that person receives you, you will know, or how they show up for you, you will know if they are really worthy of sticking it out with. And if they're not, again, just like we were saying earlier, it doesn't mean you automatically cut them out. There are variations of that I think everybody has to come up with, depending on the person and the circumstance and the time in your life. And like Amanda was saying, how it's not final. Whatever seat you put them in today is not the same seat that they will be in a month from now or a year from now. You don't have to figure it out forever. You just have to figure it out for today. And that alone really lifts the stress. I don't know about for you, but definitely for me. So.
And just so you guys know, since I'm the time police, that Come to Jesus talk was about 3 years ago.
You're the time police.
You do always know exactly when things.
Did you look up the date while we were talking,
fantastic.
or you already knew? You just.
I could tell you the day if you want me to say it. I don't know the exact day. Well, actually, hold on.
Sure you do.
I may know. It's probably like, do you want me to say?
I do, if you know it.
It's like August 31st.
I'm going to say it was very likely September 5th.
Oh.
September 4th or 5th, 2016.
You are the time police.
I love that.
Oh my goodness. It was a great defining moment, I think, for us. For us, of course, for Heather and I as a duo, but for us as a trio also, because Amanda was present for that.
That was the first weekend you guys met in person, right? A lot happened that long weekend, guys.
I'm a lot. Yeah.
Maybe one day we'll share about adventures in that weekend.
We will,
but just in general, seriously, a lot did happen between each of us and just life and just it was just a lot, but it was good.
But I mean, like, let me ask you guys this, since you brought up your own personal situation, is like, do you feel grateful for that situation in the sense that now you guys have a stronger friendship, you learned something about each other, or if it were up to you, you would erase the whole thing?
For sure. No regrets.
No regrets.
Oh, actually, I think I would feel a little like insecure in my personal one-on-one relationship with Heather had we not had that, and not because of anything that we do or say that's not right in our friendship, but because of our personalities and the way we function. Because here's the deal. I'm going to just say some shit right now.
Say some shit. I love it when you do that.
Like, Heather and I on the same team, we're unstoppable. We are unstoppable. And there is something really, there's a pleasant magic that just simply exists there. When we are in sync with one another, there is just a harmony, a natural harmony. I do not want to know a world where Heather and I are not on the same team. Do you know what I mean? I just feel like Heather and I against each other. I just feel like that's something that people should be wary of. If that ever happens, I don't know. And it won't happen, I don't believe, because we, because we kind of broke through that barrier weekend one. Let's hang out together and get in a fight. And we did.
I do have an idea for a book where two sisters, like light and dark, are feuding and they have magic. I know. I would base it on me and you. Oh my God.
Oh my gosh. Who's the dark one?
I mean, I have.
Oh, I know.
Your eyes, you were so funny there.
Can we switch places halfway through, like season 7?
I knew you were going to say you want to know what it feels like to be dark.
I do.
Is that what it is?
Yes.
I know. You're so cute.
Listen, I like being sunshine. You know what I'm saying? But I'm like in love with the moon. I don't know.
You're like Amanda. You're like Amanda when she gets mad. It's like a little, well, I mean, I've never seen her truly mad, but I just picture her like this little kitten, like, meow. Yeah. Like, you're so cute, you know.
Like,
she's legit trying to rage, and you're like, oh, you're so cute.
Yeah, that's exactly what it's like. That's why I wanted to be an actress, because I wanted to play all the bitch roles, because that's like not my natural disposition, and I wanted to be like mean for a change.
Ooh, yeah.
I wanted to just try it on, because I'm not gonna try that shit in real life. Hell no.
You can try it on me.
No, I would never try it on you. No way.
You can't. I like it. Remember how I smile a lot?
We can act like it. We can do like a play or something. Yeah. But that's not going to happen in real life.
It could. Listen, well, kind of. What? Okay, Chelsea Wilde. We've never told the honeys about Chelsea Wilde before, but Chelsea Wilde is going to be a TV show or a webisode or web show or something. It's going to be. And when Chelsea Wilde is a thing, we can do an episode where it's like Freaky Friday or something. And like Chelsea can be dark and Amanda, you can be a bitch. And like I will cry.
Yeah.
I'll be Chelsea. I'll be like in my feelings. That's going to be weird.
It'll be like opposite day.
I don't know. I'm a little tired thinking about it, but it's acting. I can probably do it.
I love that idea. I can't wait. That sounds like a great episode.
It does.
I'll talk to Brooke. She can cry on command. She's known how to do that since she was 2.
No, you don't get to shoulder off the lightness. You have to embody it. That's part of the agreement.
You're going to have to practice, and you're going to have to participate.
And you're great at it. So don't act like you're not. You're great at it. You're my light all the time. Don't even play. Don't even play.
Yes, that's true. Heather, oh my God, Heather is so much light. Are you kidding?
No.
She just doesn't cry.
Well, because I do it. I bottle my tears. They're like superpowers. I can't waste them. Just kidding. I don't, but I should because they never happen. It's like in that fantasy novel or movie where like they have to get the single tear of the woman who doesn't cry or whatever, and then it saves the world.
Yeah. Oh yeah, like the Phoenix tear in Harry Potter.
Yeah. Oh, I was thinking Smallville, but yes, Harry Potter. That's more popular.
Oh, okay.
Like
well, then that must be a thing, I guess. I don't know. I don't read a lot of fantasy.
I used to really be into the Phoenix actually as a symbol for my life or whatever because of the whole, rising from the ashes. I mean, because let's go back to where I just kicked everybody out. I burned the shit out of those bridges. All the bridges. I mean, there was just ash left.
She burned down the theater.
Yeah. So.
Well, if there's only ash left, I guess Phoenix Rising. That's the only way you can go.
It was kind of my spirit animal for a little while. Yeah.
It's a good one.
But the point of where we're going is that conflict in friendship is not actually a bad indication. It can actually be a very good, healthy thing. And so we shouldn't be afraid of it.
Actually, I remember what I was going to say because Chelsea, you were saying that we definitely wouldn't regret it. And you were so glad that it happened. It made you feel more secure because I was going to say, I agree. And I feel like that with both of you now that we've had disagreement. I've had a disagreement with both of you now at different points. And I'm so, so glad because, and I've talked to Amanda about this before. I did cry when we had this conversation the first time, actually, the first time she ever said the words and that I received and believed them, that there was nothing that I can do to alienate her friendship ever. And it felt more unconditional than any other love or relationship I had experienced in my life, honestly. And so I just feel much more secure in our friendship. I feel like I can be honest at all times. And I feel like you can too. And I feel like we will all do so in a really, really caring kind of way. Like we would never deliberately hurt each other. And it just feels safer now that we've been through something like that. It really, really strengthened us, but it strengthened me personally in my sense of security and how I feel. And then of course I can take that into other friendships that I have because it just gives me even more of a barometer or like a picture of what it can be, what it should kind of look like. And not every friendship's going to be the same. And I think it's important to say that too, because we've talked about this a lot, that not every person is going to fill the same role in your life and they shouldn't. And that's awesome to have that diversity. But that sense of like how I'm less likely to shy away from conflict now with friends because there's a part of me, I guess it's a little bit like Chelsea where I'm like, ooh, and I'm so excited. This is going to be so good. We've reached this place where we're going to fight. That sounds weird still to say, but a little bit of me is like, yeah, this is going to be good. This is either going to be really, really bad or it's going to be really, really good.
Conflict and fighting, those things, they're honest. I mean, they can be. They're honest things, and I would even say that conflict might even be necessary for certain friendships in order for them to grow and evolve and really mature, like for all the reasons you're saying.
Or
Heather,
to truly reveal, because it is honest. So it's also going to truly reveal that person's heart, because if you can come to a conversation like that from a place of love and caring, even when you're angry with somebody, you're still not going to deliberately kind of hurt them. or if they do, or if you do, then you really learn a lot about yourself or that other person. And then you can really get a glimpse into what is this going to look like if I stick around, and that's just so important. That's everything right there.
Totally.
That was awesome. So we're just about to wrap up this conversation, and I know there's so much more we could talk about, but what do you guys want to leave the honeys with today?
I want to leave our honeys with something that I know I say this often, but I do believe it's true. Love is guaranteed to break your heart. The nature of love is that our heart is being thrown into a gauntlet of sorts, and we're choosing to do that. So any friendship that's worth its salt is going to leave a few scars on your heart. It's also going to leave some great memories and some warm fuzzies, but it's going to reshape you in some ways. It's going to bruise you. It might even beat you up a little bit. That doesn't mean that it's unhealthy. It doesn't mean it's bad, as long as your personal value, your sense of self-worth, your mental health, all of those things as long as those things are in line and are being taken care of. Don't be afraid to get your heart broken by somebody you love for the sake of learning about them and growing with them. And then on the flip side of that, don't be afraid or too defensive to maybe receive somebody else's pain in the moment, to let somebody be angry with you, to let somebody express how you have perhaps hurt them. Not just because it's a good method to get to like resolution, but because simply by keeping your mouth shut and opening your ears, simply by listening to their hurt and their pain, you are validating their feelings and you are silently telling them that they are incredibly significant. And that's something priceless that we can give one another. So yeah.
That's beautiful. And I've heard you tell me that before. And I love that quote, that love is guaranteed to break your heart. I love it because it reminds us that there's going to be sacrifice involved, but that it's worth it. And I think a lot of the people I've known in my life who do have a tendency to follow our society's messaging about, well, if somebody pisses you off or, makes a mistake or it doesn't show up for you right away, or, it's kind of a one strike and you're out philosophy. I think you lose on that. I think you, as the person who would operate based on that, you're the one missing out. And I know that there are times when that is the right thing. And I mean, listen, we both know right now when that is. You already know when that is. And I'm not speaking against those times. I think you absolutely follow your gut and you just know that. But I'm talking about the times when you're going to make that cut based on your own ego or fear or pain. Just like that snap reaction. If that's your snap reaction in general, when that happens to you, I just think that it maybe warrants a little bit more self-reflection, not just like who are the people you're drawing to you, but just look at them one at a time, like we've talked about today, and measure them against these things that we've talked about. Measure yourself against the things that we've talked about, because I don't want anyone else to lose out. I don't want any one of us to lose out on something like what Chelsea and I were talking about with that kind of forever friendship. Like I was saying with Amanda, and how what it meant to me when she said that unconditional, I will always show up for you. There's nothing you can do to change that. That's magical. We are all searching for that. That's what we're doing. That's what we're all doing. We're just all searching for that, whether it's through friendship or romantic relationships or family. We're just all searching for that. So you can't give up so easily that you would miss out on something like that. Because for me, my friendship with Amanda and Chelsea got this good after we came through something like that, for sure. So I just encourage you to meet where we are. Meet us in that middle, that crossroads of where empathy meets your self-worth. And we're excited to have you in the theater.
I'm in the front row.
I mean, you're right, kind of Heather? On the stage. You and Chelsea are on the stage with me.
Okay. All right, cool. I got like behind the scenes backstage passes. Nice.
I mean, you're keeping the show running. Let's be honest.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like our opening and closing the curtains over here. Chelsea's in charge of the snow.
Oh, Chelsea's like, she's got like tigers jumping through hoops.
The rafters.
There's clowns over here. It's cool.
Not clowns.
Just kidding, not clowns. Princesses.
Yeah.
There's magic carpet rides. There.
Yes.
See, this is what I'm talking about. We're writers. When we come up with a fantasy scenario, we just got to play it through, you know? Oh my gosh. But I just want to say I love you both so much. And I'm so happy and honored to do this show with you and to be able to share our experiences in friendship. And, you know, some of those experiences were not always, you know, rosy, I guess you could say. So I think the biggest thing is that, you know, life happens to us. I'm sorry, life happens for us and not to us. And so I know that relationships can be really challenging. And especially when we have trouble with our friendships, it can be really unsettling and really, really confusing. But I think the biggest example that we've shown here is not to be afraid to face that. And actually there's something really beautiful on the other side. And so, you know, Heather, Chelsea, and I, we have a really tremendous friendship. All right. And when you want to have a really amazing friendship, then you have to be willing to go to these places sometimes. If you just want mediocre friendship, then, you know, fine. You know, avoid the conflict, don't go deep, and that's totally fine. But if you want something really worthwhile, something that is going to impact your life and help you grow, because the conflicts that I've had help me grow as a person, help my friendships grow and develop and really, really blossom. And that never would have happened if we didn't come to that point and really tackle it. So I just want to encourage everybody to, you know, not be afraid to face it, especially if you want to have a great, great friendship. So with that, guys, we're going to leave you. We had so much fun chatting with you today, and we will see you next time on The Raw Honeys. We hope you enjoyed today's episode of the Raw Honeys podcast. If so, please share it with a friend or post a review. Heather, Chelsea, and I would love to connect with you. Check us out on Instagram at the Raw Honeys or join our community of honeys on Facebook. Thanks for listening. We wish you nothing but big love.